This week, the propellers are going to be spinning. Charles Shirer. I told you I was going to mess that up. Sure. BSD Bandit, also known as BSD Bandit. Penetration tester, red teamer, video game nerd, Linux nerd, BSD nerd, security researcher is going to talk about Linux, Rust, retro gaming, and all kinds of nerd stuff. In the security news, what is an individual validation code signing certificate? Exploiting the Flipper Zero, fantastic rootkits, and where to find them. Scientists test intelligent robot lasers to kill cockroaches. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
Securing your organization against today's expanding threat landscape starts with data. Data you need to analyze at scale. And that starts with Devo. Devo's cloud-native logging and security analytics platform can handle unrivaled, see-it-all amounts of data and delivers the answers you need at stop-waiting-for-it speed. All so you can confidently focus on the cyber threats that matter most. Devo. More data, more clarity, more confidence. Visit securityweekly.com/Devo to learn more.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm going to do my best Larry Pichet imitation and introduce you to the man that's soon going to discover why he needs to lie on a metal grounding pad, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Welcome, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 761, recorded in G-Unit Studios here in Rhode Island. Special visitor, guest co-host in the studio, none other than Mr. Jeff Mann.
I'm a special visitor now?
I don't know.
It's been a while.
I'm just getting warmed up. It's my first podcast today.
Shake it off. It's great to be back in studio. It's great to be back getting into the swing.
It's good to have you here, man.
Show. We've enjoyed some cigars, and we're going to enjoy a few more.
Yes, and some cocktails.
Cheers.
Well, one cocktail because I only felt like making one round of cocktails because I'm lazy.
And then scotch.
Mandy Logan is here with us. Do you have your mini moonshine?
I do, but this time it's actually filled with Cabernet.
That's a switch.
If you say so.
I know, but I had to keep the moonshine vibe alive.
I like how you're gonna drink all of your adult beverages from little tiny bottles. Little
tiny.
Oh my god, it's even smaller than I thought. You hold it like right up to the camera.
Oh, yeah,
and I thought
I
it was
usually
like
hold it there. Oh no.
It is really mini. Yes.
It's I think it's 2 ounces. I mean, it's basically a shot of wine.
That's shot. It's amazing. Well, it's good to have you here. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Josh Marpet is here with us.
Damn straight, as always.
Tyler Robinson is also here with us.
Hello, everyone. We have a full casting today. I don't know how this happened.
I don't know how, but Tyler, in like my imaginary feature in the software we call PPWorks, I have this assign button, and I wanted to assign you my stories number 22, 23, and 24.
Hint.
So,
hint.
You copious amounts of spare time while on the air. Yeah.
I mean, if only the developer had added that feature prior to letting the project go.
He was busy putting different versions of Linux on his computer.
That's why nothing got developed.
That's right.
Sound was working.
He switched distros. Join our Discord channel to chat with our host, ask questions, customize live stream alerts, and more. Visit securityweekly.com/Discord to receive an invite. Charles Shirer, BSD Bandit. Penetration tester, red teamer, security researcher with security certifications, even has 20 years of overall IT experience with the last 8 years in information security, performing web application, network, and wireless penetration testing. Is a maintainer of the SecBSD penetration testing security operating system and has appeared on many different podcasts and security conferences. Charles has a podcast called Positively Blue Team in his spare time. You don't need spare time, maybe. Charles enjoys retro gaming, hanging out with family and friends, and helping other people get into the IT industry. Charles, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, I am super excited to be here. Ow! Yep, yep. It's Wonderful Wednesday, folks. How y'all feeling this evening?
We cannot match your energy. It's like you always have 17 cups of coffee in you, Charles. I love it. I love it.
Is that a needle hanging out of his arm?
Wow.
He has his IV stand just off camera.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, my goodness.
Adderall.
No, man, that's pure.
No,
I get the sense that it's pure natural energy.
It's pure natural energy and mixed in with some water. Pure water.
Pure water. Not even like
Yes.
alkaline or whatever in the water. Like those new fancy waters.
No, just
Just
pure
regular water from a tap.
No, oh no,
No,
tap.
from the
I
tap,
don't know
no.
what the tap would do. I stay away from the tap.
There you go. Charles, how did you get your start in information security?
Oh my goodness, it takes me back to college, actually. And if we want to go back to the hacking sense, it takes me back to childhood, right? So we'll go back to the childhood.
Yeah,
part.
what were
I
you
like
hacking
that.
in your childhood?
The Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
Yeah, so I used to get subscriptions to Nintendo Power, and I'm pretty sure everybody remembers Nintendo Power. That was the magazine of choice. That was everything. When you wanted to find out about the greatest games, well, the new games, we didn't know they were going to be great at that time until we got older, of course. We wanted to play those games. We couldn't wait for the reviews. We couldn't wait for the games to come out. And they always had, like, I think, like the thumbs up, like the ratings and everything else. Nintendo Power was it. So one day in Nintendo Power, I saw that they were coming out with Dragon Ball Z for the Super Famicom. So I wanted to play it on the Super Nintendo as well. I lucked up and had a Super Famicom, and that's thanks to my cousin. But I wanted to play it on the original Super Nintendo.
Right.
So me and my friends, we went down. I'm originally from Yonkers, New York. So we went down to Chinatown. Mom, you don't know about this story. This is something you didn't know about. I'm sorry, it's coming out like 40 something years later. But we went down to Chinatown, me and a couple of my good friends, and I used my allowance money to buy the Dragon Ball Z for Super Famicom. And we came back to my friend's house who had the Super Nintendo, and we noticed we tried to get the cartridge to fit in because we thought it would work, even though it was Japanese Super Nintendo. We thought it would work on the American Super Nintendo, and it didn't at first. So what we wound up doing was kind of just like opening up, looking inside of the where you put the cartridge at. And when we looked in there, we saw like two, I guess like holders that were in place. So what we wound up doing to get those out of there, took a pair of pliers and just yanked it up and got those two hinges. Those two hinges came off. We thought we had broken it. But then we pushed the cartridge down into the Super Nintendo, hit power, and you just saw all these funny letters just show up on the screen for Dragon Ball Z.
No, that's like an amazing, like, I fell in love with hacking story though, because like you made me fall in love with hacking all over again telling that story.
And I'll put it to you this way: I was 12 years old at that time.
It's amazing.
12 years old.
Did I tell you my stupid fact I know about the Super NES platform?
Talk about it.
So earlier Intel systems that came with ME 2006 for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. The processor that they used was an ARC processor, and it shares the same lineage as the processor that was in the Super NES.
No.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Not many people do. It's
What?
it's like my Cliff Clavin moment. That's what it is.
Oh my goodness. Where are those notes? He has them hidden on the FTP server somewhere.
That's right. That's
powered
right.
off since the 90s.
I do weird research for my day job, man. And it leads me down very strange paths.
There you go, man. That's it. You know, text files and all kinds of fun stuff.
That's awesome. So did you get into like phone freaking kind of stuff? You said you like New
I was a late
York,
bloomer.
like when I'm imagining you're 12 in New York even or near New York City at that time, right? There was
Yonkers,
some phone,
New
there was
York,
there was a serious phone freaker scene was it the 90s?
You know what? It was the late 80s,
Mhm.
early 90s. By the time I got to it, I was a late bloomer. But I did, thanks to neworder.box.sk
I remember that site. It's a great site.
and mobile.box.sk.
Nice.
So with mobile.box.sk, they had some old school, like, freaking articles there. And I went and bought some old parts through Radio Shack, of course. And I built a black box.
Nice.
Old garage sale parts and Radio Shack. But I was late to the freaker scene. And that's because of age. If I had been there earlier, I would have been there. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
You know.
And then,
Yeah.
did you do like sysadmin type stuff? I think you were telling me you did.
Yeah.
We had very similar. We worked on the similar machines and in a similar time frame. I feel like.
So I'll take you back even further. I started off as a PC tech. And worked my way up to sysadmin. Now, the way I became a system administrator was through I was working at this company called, and I'll say it, SunGuard Collegiate. I don't know if they're still in existence. They were at our school at Virginia State University. That's where I got my first internship and eventually job from, right? And I started off like first carrying boxes and making cables. That was my job for 7 months as an intern, just making cables by hand, right? And then from there, I became a PC tech. And of course, with PC tech, you have What's Up Gold, had it hooked up with the pager and everything else. If something went wrong, ghosting labs, all of the other fun stuff.
Wow, you're bringing me back, man. What's Up Gold?
Oh my god!
Yes,
I didn't think anyone else remembered that. But
with the pager, nobody remembers it like that. I was like, yeah, that's humble beginnings. And making crossover cables for the Cisco guys for the trunk ports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 3550, the 2600 routers.
Yep.
The Pixel 515.
Oh, I remember those. Wow.
Yeah,
really taking me back now.
Yeah, the Pix Firewall 515. Yeah.
Those things were built like a tank too.
505.
515. Oh man.
505s, yes. But and what I wound up doing, so we had a sysadmin that was already there. He was a Novell Netware sysadmin. His wife got deployment papers to go to Hawaii. So of course he's gonna leave Virginia to go to Hawaii. That's his wife. So I never forget, my boss came to my desk. He had a Novell book in one hand and he had a GroupWise book in the other hand. And he put them on my desk and he said, "You are the new system administrator. Don't F up," and closed my door.
Oh shit!
Should have been a bottle of whiskey associated with that. Actually, at the time, Novell and GroupWise weren't that horrible. Like it worked. It worked, right? Like that's
it. But here's the thing:
unlike Windows at the time or OS2 Warp, like it actually worked.
But here's the thing, and you know how this goes, right? When things are working for somebody else, they mess up for you.
Yes.
So, thank goodness, and I'll tell you what happened. So we were running Novell GroupWise and Novell Netware all on the same sysvol on a Dell 4400. And one of the RAID controllers went down, and it was a RAID 5. So time was ticking. And what happened on the sysvol, it filled up. So you can only get to the DOS screen. Because, Novell didn't have a bootloader. It needed DOS to boot up in order to boot into Novell.
It didn't have.
Yeah, it didn't.
Oh, interesting.
No, you had to use DOS to boot into Novell Netware.
Oh,
so
right.
When the sysvol filled up, it was only a DOS screen. Thank goodness I knew how to maneuver around the command line
in DOS because you were hacking your system to run Doom and all kinds of other stuff, weren't you?
All kinds of wild stuff between DOS and Linux. This is why I love the command line. The command line is God.
What was it? What were the files you edited in DOS to make your games work? It was like x86 mem something.
Mem. There were a lot of .ini files too. Depends on the OS that you had at the time.
We're going way back.
I have nightmares about Windows Millennial, but that's another story.
We all do.
It doesn't exist. That operating system doesn't exist. It was just a nightmare.
And what you know what we're gonna call
That was a collective to shared delusion.
Mhm.
Yes, well done, Mandy.
If you lie to yourself long enough, it does become the truth.
Yeah. That's that mental thing that Foley's do, like where two people will get too focused on one thing and think that it's real and it's not. This was just too many people thought that it maybe happened.
Yeah. This is what happened to me with video games and computers, and they all eventually became real. But
so you had to recover a RAID 5 array of Novell NetWare from a DOS prompt is where we were at in the story.
I had to fix all of that, yes.
Ugh,
and
ugly.
I had to delete some old files that were filling up the sysvol and move them off to an FTP server that was running Slackware Linux on a laptop.
Hey, my generation.
Time. So you would love that with Slackware Linux on a laptop. But I got it back up and running. I was so happy. And from there, day and night, all I did was Novell. When I came home from work, I had a server set up for myself. I bought an old server off of eBay. And I had it set up running Novell NetWare. I had my own tree. I even had the IPX, SPX protocols. Because remember, this was running NetWare 4.11. Okay, this wasn't even running TCP/IP NetWare, which didn't come out till NetWare 5.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I had 4.11. So my project, and I told them what my project was going to be. I said, hey, we've got to get off 4.11. We got to get into the modern ages of TCP/IP and get rid of this IPX, SPX. And my boss was like, I'm so glad you said that, because Cisco is charging us like crazy for being able to use that protocol.
I remember. You bring up all these things. Like I tried to forget about that. We had to route IPS XPX on the network separate from TCP/IP.
For that.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. So that was my project.
ThinNet or ThickNet?
ThinNet.
Is that the
We
one
didn't have
that
the
came
vampire taps. That was old.
You had vampire
that's
taps?
old.
Was that the vampire taps? ThinNet was the vampire taps.
That was
right?
base
That was
10.
the vampire tap. Yeah.
Yeah, it was base 10.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was old when all the kids. Oh, man, you took it back.
Yeah. You guys are bringing us back. I had to bring you back another step. Fuck you.
I'll take it back even further. We did have a token ring network with the Pegasus
Oh yeah,
and the 486 with the turbo button.
I was an admin.
I worked in a building where they had the IBM ambidextrous connectors.
Ooh, hey, you know what? Boom, boom, boom. You got me on that one.
Wait, the turbo.
Wow,
you know what's
that's
funny?
classic.
It's funny you say the turbo button. Remember the turbo button on those old school PCs? It would turbo mode.
Yeah.
I mean,
The 486s.
Intel's bringing back turbo mode. I heard that on a.
No way.
Are you kidding me?
And my son is sitting in the car listening. He's like, Dad, what's turbo mode? I'm like, in really old computers, there was this turbo button, and if you pushed it, it was supposed to make it run faster, and it was tied into the processor. He's like, wow, Dad, you're a real nerd. He's like, are we gonna get like a physical button now on PCs? Like, I'm like, no, it's probably gonna be in software, son.
You know what? Well, you know what you used to do, and this was the fun part. We was like, if you wanted to crank up the internet, press the turbo button.
Makes the internet go fast.
Because we had to decommission the machine, so we left it on the
Nice.
a desk in front of the help desk. If you want to crank up the internet, press the turbo button.
Is that the same thrill as when you're like street racing and hit the NOS?
Yeah. Except
You know what?
There really was no NOS, really. Like there really wasn't much turbo.
It's just dumb. Anybody that wants turbo, they always want turbo, so the button's always going to be in. What's it matter?
Just give them a flux capacitor. Take
There you
care of
go.
it all.
Flux capacitor.
but that's how I became like a sysadmin, and this is where I started taking care of the well, there was like one Linux box which was Slackware, and
On
I
the
later
laptop,
converted that
right?
on a laptop. I later put FreeBSD 4.8 on a server
Nice.
and made that the FTP server. I was a stingy sysadmin. I was like this. If you told me that you wanted a print server, that's all you got. That was the only port that was open. That was the only thing that was going to work on there. You didn't have anything else on there.
Well, that's
I didn't.
what you
I
asked
didn't
for,
believe
so that's
in
what you
putting
get.
anything else on there. Yeah,
That's what you asked for.
that's
So that's
it.
what you get. End of story.
Man,
Yeah,
zero
I didn't
trust
believe-
back in the day. It seems like
that's
Yeah,
what-
I didn't
they
believe
label
it.
that zero trust now. We call that just hardening our systems.
Yeah, I
seriously.
didn't believe in putting an FTP server and all these extra services that.
They came
didn't
on by
require.
default back then in Linux.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
Oh,
BSD. BSD was
No, BSD didn't do that.
BSD was like, no,
You see how-
figure it out on your own.
You see how I'm smiling? Yeah, BSD didn't do that. It still doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's like you
But,
want an FTP server, like you got to go compile that shit and get it running.
Oh, you know what? Ouch.
Is it still like that? Is it still?
No, it's not. They've made it a little bit better.
Yeah, there's
It's
a
more
there's a
comfortable.
more modern package manager. I used to go get
Yeah.
when I worked at were you at a university? A lot of universities ran Novell. You were still working at a university.
The universities ran Novell.
Yeah.
They ran Novell. We eventually moved over to.
But the way I got like hardware to run air quotes servers was I'd go to the PC Techs that ran the labs where they had like public computers for the students, and students would go, they'd log in, they'd do their work, and then when they logged out, the machine would like wipe and reset. And they would reset they would get new hardware for those labs, and then the old hardware would like be sitting there. And I go up to the dude that like ran the labs. I'm like, wait, what are you doing with those old PCs? He's like, I don't
There you
know.
go.
Like, you want to? He's like, I kind of need a coffee. I'm like, if I come back with a coffee, I'm gonna take like 6 of those, right? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And so
There you go.
I took those and I put OpenBSD on all of them with Snort and load balanced
Nice.
network traffic across them, and it was my IDS for a while.
Nice. That was. You know what? Back then, when you were collecting PCs like that, it's just like no different than what they're doing with the Raspberry Pis. Just getting a
Correct.
whole bunch of them and just linking them up together.
Take up a lot less space now, though, huh?
I know. It's amazing.
So wait, but once you got Novell to version 5, someone came to you and said, "We're going all to Windows."
yes.
Right? That's what happened to every Novell administrator.
Yeah. So now I had to learn Active Directory.
Yep. Yeah.
2003.
Yeah, that was about.
Yeah.
I was at university at the time, going through the same exact thing, dude.
Yep. And I went wild, and we had VMware 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
and I put our DNS servers in the virtual environment for 2.0.
Wow, that's
And some
forward
people,
thinking.
yeah, but they're freaking out. Yeah, some people were freaking out. Like, what happens if something happens to the
You know what,
hardware?
though?
What are we
Like,
gonna do?
But like 2003 was an unfair time to go, hey, all you Novell administrators, why don't you learn Windows? And you're building your Windows system, and you're like, why am I already infected? And Paul's coming to me and telling me that I've got the slammer worm on my new Windows build. I haven't even finished building it yet. That's an unfair
the
time
slammer.
to be a Windows admin. But a lot of security people cut their teeth in that time, because if you were doing Windows, you had to know about security.
Yeah, Slammer, Blaster.
Yep.
You know what? It's wild. I was at the university. I was actually in college when Blaster hit. Right when Blaster hit, I was so excited. You know why? Because that's when I broke out my laptop, and my laptop at the time running the old school original Red Hat 7.2 on my Sony Vaio with 10 gigs of RAM. No, excuse me, 10 gigs of hard drive space, 128 megs of RAM.
And it was
And when
it was purple too, which is amazing.
Yeah, it was purple. And you know what? And you know what was amazing about it? Everybody said, "Oh my God, I can't get on the internet. It's not working." I said, "Wait, let me try it." I plugged in my Ethernet cable. Oh, I thought I was doing something. I rebooted my machine, got a DHCP address.
You were all good.
And I went to Mozilla.com when it had the original dinosaur. It wasn't even Firefox then.
That's
It
right.
was the red dinosaur.
It's amazing. Those were the days.
Yes.
Y'all are making me feel so damn old.
And people were like, "How are you getting on the internet?"
I'm
And
not
you know
running
what I had
Windows.
Because I'm running Linux. That should have been a commercial.
Right.
Like how they did the Mac versus the PC thing. That should have been like, "Oh my God, how did he get on the internet?" I'm running Linux. Da, 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 and it should have been some music. Because it felt great that day. Blaster didn't affect me. Because I'm running.
I'm curious. I am curious now. Is that some of the motivation behind the SecBSD OS? And like, literally, are you running that live for operations and during pen tests?
Well, wait.
Yes,
Let's back up first. What is you somewhere along the line? You spent more time with BSD, right?
Yeah, in college still.
And then
That was my OS of choice.
and then you decided to do what is SecBSD?
So SecBSD, that started up in November of, late 2019 into early 2020, right? So a good friend of mine, shout out to Purple Rain and Banshee, because they're awesome folks. It's only 7 of us, and we wanted to, again, our minds are more so like I guess maybe people might call it the old school open source mindset, where we're releasing the project for free, and any updates, we work on them when we get time or whatnot to try to give something back to the community. Kali Linux, a lot of Linux users, they had options of like with penetration test distros, whether it was Kali Linux, Pen2, you got Arc Linux. Wasn't it Black Box Linux as well? If I'm correct.
Knoppix.
Knoppix. Like you had different distros already for Linux, right? There was nothing really for the BSD community. So this is where we're like, you know what? Let's, SecBSD. And it took some time to get some things ported over. We're still trying to port different tools over. I'm actually trying to do some stuff with Rust in the SecBSD environment, because SecBSD is based off of OpenBSD. That's all it is. It's based off of OpenBSD. So a lot of things are disabled by default, which is awesome, and this is why we love it. It would be wild if we did NetBSD, which is only designed to really, their goal is to run on as much hardware as possible.
Right.
OpenBSD is the security of the BSDs. FreeBSD is more so like the server side of the house.
And how are you doing on secure boot on the BSDs? You still rolling your own keys, basically?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, but that's not anyone's fault other than, Microsoft for one. And I mean, the communities at large, right? Because you almost have to be you got to be a commercial, you got to have an entity that's going to submit something to Microsoft to get it signed, right?
Eventually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's just more so like, I guess the reason I have a lot of patience when it comes to open source and the development, because I'm a respecter of the developer. Like, I look at it this way. They took their free time to develop something for free and gave it to the community. So who am I to say, hey, you need to fix this now? Because they dedicated their time. And I think a lot of times in the industry, we forget about that. We're like, hey, this sucks. This doesn't work.
Well, we do. Someone was telling me, like, big organizations that are using open source are coming down to the open source development community and going, you know what? You really need, you need to abide by these coding standards, and you need to sign your commits, and you need to make sure you're using 2-factor authentication, right? So, that we can use your software that you're creating for free. We're like, that's not how this works, right? It's like that Force Awakens moment where like, oh, we're going to use the Force. Like, that's not how it works. It's not, right?
And how's it working out for them?
Yeah. Then they're like, what the hell? Like Log4j and then new OpenSSL vulnerability. It's like, well, dude, that's just someone else's code. Like, you're just borrowing it at that point, right?
Right. You need to do this or else comply. Like, oh my. Comply. Hackers. Developers. Open source. Comply.
But what I don't want to see happen is that puts people off to developing and contributing to open source software. That would be the atrocity there, right? Whereas they're like, like if my project is popular, really all these people are going to expect that I'm doing all these things for like security and compliance and all this stuff. And it's like, I just want to write cool software.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's the thing I definitely do not want to see happen. Like, like developers, I like how the open source community has come a long way. Because the open source community, people don't realize open source opens up a lane for folks to get experience, to get into the industry, right? If you want to be a Linux administrator, you can be a Linux administrator. You can get your experience by installing Linux and maybe installing Apache and learning how web servers work and configuring a web server to do different things. And on top of that, you could take that and say, okay, here's Squid Proxy, here's DNS. You can configure, of course, your desktop. You can configure directory services. You can do pretty much anything you want with Linux. And the cool part is you can count that as experience. That's all thanks to the open source community.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, in the early 2000s, you didn't have the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm just going to go download Windows and I'm going to take it and I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Well, I mean,
without paying for it.
You could.
I'm from the hackers.
My friend Bob used to do that all the time.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's amazing. I have a friend, Bob, that had some codes memorized. It was like 25 characters or something.
Bob had all the keys. I think we all know the same Bob.
Right?
Amazing, isn't it?
Bob had all the keys. He had it written down on a CD. Oh.
Yes. Oh, my God. Don't do that.
Bob even burned it for us.
Bob's amazing.
Thank you, Bob.
He even had a cameo in Office Space, but you don't know which one it was.
That's right.
That's true. But this is we didn't have that luxury. And this is what I say to folks now that's getting into the industry. Way more resources. Way more resources.
Oh my God. There's so many places they can go to learn, to try to play. You can get a free shell on like half a dozen different places. You can get courses to teach you.
There's no excuse for that today, right? And I'm like, folks today, like you're kind of, they're not spoiled. That's the wrong term, right? But there's a lot of opportunity out there and resources to your point. I mean, so much so, like, if I want to learn seemingly esoteric things, I'm like, I really need to know how UEFI works. And yes, the spec is 3,000 something pages, right? I'm like, or someone who's like really smart in UEFI has a free course. Like all I do is register, and I took his free class. I'm like, wow, now I actually almost sound like I know what I'm talking about when I talk with my research team at my day job. And I'm like, this is amazing, and it's on YouTube. It's open source. There's a platform. It's actually Zeno Kova Open Security Training.
Look at that. Yes,
Open Security Training 2 is the new one that he spun up, and he's got like a mostly like really in depth kind of training. One of his modules is on UEFI, and Zeno is one of the world's foremost experts on it. Right? He found attacks and vulnerabilities. Exactly.
Yep.
So if you want to learn assembly too, yes, he's good.
I took the course. Yeah.
But we have stuff like that. I'm like, if I wanted to learn that stuff back in the day, I'd be like, maybe I can can I call Intel and get them to send me a data sheet that I can study? Right?
I probably would never leave my dorm room. I'd be like, just deliver my homework. I got this course I'm taking right now.
Yep.
Wait a minute. I hardly would never leave. It's so many resources. Like, remember, you don't have to buy hardware anymore off of eBay just to learn a specific operating system. Solaris.
That's what a couple of places that I want to go. One of them is I feel like, because you do pen testing, right?
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the penetration testing, to a certain extent, even vulnerability research, is like hyper focused on Windows. And one of my articles I was covering this week was talking about something to do kernel or whatever and drivers, and I'm like, well, this is all about Windows. I'm like, are we losing sight of the fact that yes, because much of the attack surface is Windows, like a lot of this stuff works completely differently in there are other operating systems other than Windows. And
there is nothing but Windows.
Have we lost sight of this? Like when we talk about pen testing, you look at pen testing resources, is all about exploiting Windows. And I'm like, I get it. It's market share.
Winning? Paul, what's the definition of winning in most pen test engagements? It's getting domain admin.
Right. That's what's become pen testing, and much of vulnerability research has become, how do I find the next Windows exploit?
Well, and that's why you're seeing ransomware everywhere, right? Like that's the problem with the good places versus the not good places. The places that are doing this right are looking at your SaaS applications, looking at your single sign-on and SAML.
Right. What's
your authentication flows? They're leveraging and looking at the vSphere and the identity providers that vSphere is within, and the abuse from the cloud down to your hybrid environment, down to your vSphere environment for things that ransomware is going to be going after or kits are actually integrating. So good places are doing good things, but that's so rare. And the scope and budget is still small enough that it doesn't make sense for most companies to get that granular.
Right. And another thing too, right? So, and I think, Josh, you said it's all about getting domain admin, and that is just like the wrong mindset for folks to be thinking. Yeah, you get domain admin, but the goal of the pen test is to show impact. Right. Data is king.
I said that earlier today. I defined it exactly the same as Charles just did, by the way. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, show impact.
We're on the same page, man. Like, pen testing is not just showing the vulnerability, it's to show the impact of the vulnerabilities.
You got to show impact.
Yeah.
I would say data is key, right? And then access and identity is definitely the queen with inside the domain. As far as what if you can't access something, or if your access cannot be trusted, therefore the integrity for everything and the data that you can access is all brought into question. That is where a lot of the ransomware we're seeing pivot is moving to locking accounts out, locking SaaS application, pivoting to your VMware vSphere so that you can't access that data because data is king.
What I'm saying is, though, like, everyone better brush up, because next year is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. And this is going to change everything, and you're going to have to change your focus from all this Windows stuff and Active Directory. I'm somewhat joking.
No, here's the thing, right? And let's look at the landscape here, right? Like you said, the focus has been on Windows a lot of times, right? It's focused on Windows. Does it really have to be? Think about it. We're hackers, right? There's so much more out there to get into. Windows is great. Nothing wrong with it. If you're going for 0 days and you're trying to learn as much as you can of how Windows works and everything, go for it. But we still have sensors to dig into. We still have cars to dig into. APIs, the world of the APIs. We're in the age of APIs. And I call APIs the back doors to houses. I look at an application as the house, and the API is the back doors to those. Because this is research that's, I'm not going to say forgotten, but it's not really talked about. We still got mobile out there. Yeah, there's been a lot of research in the mobile arena, but there still can be more. Bugs happen every day that we're not talking about. Look what else. Look at this. Like you said, and I learned about this thing called the Wireless Cities Project. I think this is like 2010. I got wind of it. And just looking at it, if you look at it today, right? A lot of these things are sensor based. Even my watch, I just got the Apple Ultra. This thing is sensor based.
Oh, I really thought you were going to say you got the Google Pixel Watch.
No.
That's what I got.
That's all right, but look, we got the same color bands. We got the same color bands.
You know
look
why?
At that.
You can't buy any other band than this like white one. I'm like, what? Like,
oh no, I got other bands.
I'm on a waiting list for different bands. I'm like, seriously?
We're not.
So Charles, Charles, I have a question. I have a question on your opinion and kind of the theology behind what you're saying. I 100% agree. Do you think that is somewhere that we can get with the current threat landscape and the business impact and the budgets being allocated to the security side of this? Do you think that is a viable testing point when we have so many other issues? Is that something that, from a business risk standpoint, do the executives care enough, and can we allocate and provide enough impact and business reasoning to begin to test all of the other areas outside of Windows? I think we should be at a point where Windows is not, like, we're not getting in with, bad passwords and Kerber roasting and all the stupid shit that we go in and do pen tests for. Like, we need to get past that. I 100% agree. But can we get past that, or should we have that as a starting bar for companies saying, we're not looking at your Windows, we need to identify the other business platforms and risk, and your Windows should be fixed based on, here's free guidance from our pen test for the last 20 years. Is that how we get there, and is that something that we should and could be doing?
Oh, that's a good question. That would be, it's going to be, the business side of it is going to be very difficult. It's going to take some time. Will it get there eventually? Yes. Will it get there next year? Probably not. Because we're still finding, let's be realistic, we're still finding the same issues in Windows environments, like SMB version 1, still enabled out there, no signing required. You can still do, like I said, Kerber roasting. it's just lack of patched environments, like just things that can be fixed. I'm not going to say easily because every business is different, but it's going to be difficult to get them to that point where everything else is, like you said, in such disarray right now. I think it's going to take some time. I do think it will happen eventually. I hope in my lifetime. But
does that leave all the other areas behind, though, from a security standpoint, where we're not able to do a lot of the testing and get paid for it, right? Like a lot of us do this research after hours and look at these things.
It does. That's a great point, and that's my question too. Like you mentioned, Charles, earlier, like x86 assembly. Like, what if we're in a world where most of us are going to have ARM as our processors in the nearish future? What if we're at a time when embedded systems are running Spark 5 and not not an ARM based or MIPS based? Like what happens when things change to like stuff that's out there gets like more popular than it is today, right? Like you gotta like ARM is totally friggin' different when you start digging into the weeds and you're like, oh, my bag of tricks has got to change.
I'm running ARM right now. I'm running a Mac M1, and and it's funny because
how did you go from like I want freedom and open in BSD to like I'm running a Mac with an M1? Those are.
Remember what I told you earlier. I am a hacker mindset. When things, I want to learn about different things. We're always curious of knowledge. I want to understand how ARM works, and the way to understand it is to be
is to use it,
to play with it and to use it. So far so good. But again, when things change, it's just like, remember for the longest time, a lot of people were using Perl, and there was a lot of websites that were running Perl. And there was like, and I'm pretty sure there's still some Perl code out there that's just sitting there.
Because no one can read it.
Right. No one can read it. And it's just probably running on the internet. And I'll even go back and I'll change my pattern of saying the internet. I'm going to say the internet. Because that's when Perl was popular, when people used to say the internet and RISC architecture changes everything. And people know what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yeah, I'm old enough to know what you're saying.
Yes. But the thing is just like as time goes on, things like change. Look at Web3, right? Look at what crypto has done.
So what you're saying is you have like a really secure website if you ran it in Perl today, because no one would know how to pen test it anymore.
No, I would be scared to run it in Perl because there are some Perl monks that are still living. They're still breathing. Okay.
But there's not a lot of those people anymore.
No,
it's not.
Well,
maybe
the thought process has changed too, if you think about it, right? Most folks, a lot of folks that I've encountered, just watching like different videos or even in different spaces, they'll say, hey, Web 3.0 is the new thing, or whatever's the new thing, and we're here to make a lot of money. And they don't care. Some people don't care about the learning aspect. Some people say, hey, teach me how to hack. Okay, hey, I can't really teach you how to hack until I know what you're interested in. Whatever you're interested in, pick that and try to learn as much as you can about the subject. When you understand how networks work and how operating system works, then you can understand how security works.
Yeah, and like pick one. I agree. Like pick one, right? Like
pick one
and learn all about it. Because then when you go to the next one, there's going to be enough fundamental concepts that transfer over.
Yeah,
but it's just like that's you coming up from like doing that the right way, right? Coming sysadmin, network admin, even computer tech. Like that is the proper evolution, I think, of a good pen tester and a good security practitioner. However, we're at a point where we do not have enough security practitioners. We do not have enough of the next generation coming in. How do we short circuit that while still getting them to learn how to learn and have some of those hardships so that they can persevere and know how to get to the answer like we did, just faster? They don't have 20 years to do it, but they need some of those lessons.
You give them a 486 and a stack of floppies with Slackware on it.
No, we don't do it like that. But you know what we can do? Like, see how we're talking today? Hopefully somebody who's watching this video right now, This is the way to go about it.
No, they're watching this video going, listen to these old nerds talking about the equivalent of walking uphill both ways in the snow to school.
How can I fast forward on YouTube because I need that instant gratification? When do they talk about how to hack?
Right.
Okay, how to hack? Because what's happening now? Everybody wants to be offensive on the offensive side right out the gate.
No, fuck you. That's not it.
Come on now, you've seen
Josh, stop being offensive.
Yeah.
Off the gate.
What's this offensive?
I had to say it. It was just laying there. I'm sorry.
But no, we need policy writers. Who's going to write all these policies? We need defenders. We need
documentation,
offensive folks. We need documentation. We need everything. It's like we need reconstruction of everything. You know, we have sensors in place. We have drones. We have all of this stuff in place. The Bluetooth protocol standards. What's going to happen when people stop thinking about Bluetooth? Oh, it just works.
Are you conceding that technology has not solved the security problem?
I am saying that.
So how do we go about making the defensive side of this? And like I've talked about this on a couple of the other shows, like getting the people that are doing the hard work in the trenches. How do we make that the not varsity, quarterback that doesn't do all the work, but it gets all the girls and is the cool one? Like, how do we make the defensive team the cool varsity people and take away some of the offensive? Like 1% of 1% maybe should do offensive work. There's very few people I think that are very good and talented at that. You can learn a little bit, but that takes a mindset. The rest of everybody should be the ones that are getting the credit, getting the coolness, and everyone should want to be the blue team and the blue side. How do we make that the sexy side and not the hacking and offensive piece that is really hard to do well? And without the James Bond movies, maybe they wouldn't be such a sexy thing. So how do we switch that narrative with inside of our communities and our industry?
It starts with us and sitting at the table with everybody. We can't be on islands anymore. We can't be in a vacuum anymore. That's cool that you wrote that, like for somebody that's wrote like say somebody writes a 0 day, right? That's amazing that you wrote that 0 day. How about the person that wrote that 0 day say, hey, let me sit with you as a defender. How do I have to protect myself against this? I think a lot of times when we're doing whatever we're doing, if we're doing like threat hunting or if we're doing red team work or whatever we're doing, we're kind of in an island. We're kind of in an asylum on our own. And then we don't.
Did you say silo or asylum? I
said asylum.
I think that's
locked in. We're locked in asylums.
Gotcha.
Separate asylums.
We should do a share the mic in InfoSec, right? Like anytime a red teamer is dropping some cool stuff, sometimes it comes with defensive and detection measures, but it would be cool if we partnered up and teamed more with the people that write really good detections, Yara rules, the ability to find and build mitigating and compensating controls around this, and then share that mic as you drop some of the offensive pieces that get so widely spread and frankly are kind of cool, but we should share that.
Mandy?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I've been on this journey of Rust, right?
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Rust.
We haven't even gotten to Rust yet.
Oh, that was the perfect segue. That's why I was waiting.
Oh, it's a great segue.
So I'm glad you brought that up because as late I've been on this journey with Rust, right? And
well, wait, why are we all excited about? I mean, seemingly excited about Rust.
Well,
yeah, that's my question. My first question to Charles was like, what prompted you to get interested in Rust over anything else? Okay. What was it that clicked for you?
Okay, so a while back, shout out to the blind hacker and Dead Pixel Sec. What we wound up doing, so I noticed when attacking Windows and attacking networks, a lot of us were using PowerShell, and then moving from when PowerShell was getting blocked and logged and defenders were picking it up and getting rid of it, the executables, then people were moving over to C#, right? And I noticed blind hacker, he was kind of the motivator without motivating, without saying anything, just watching, right? I noticed he did a lot of stuff in Go, and I was like, And then I'm looking over at this language in Rust, And I said, you know what? And this was just in my mindset. I said, you know what? I'm going to make this my journey. I'm going to try this. I started off with the basic hello world like everybody else in Rust, right? Just to get a feel for the language. And then what I started doing was just going through the rustlang.org documentation, reading through the book, practicing a little bit of code, reading other people's code, practicing some more code, writing some more code.
And you could read other people's Rust code and actually understand it, which is not like C is not like that.
Right. And I learned the differences really quick. I called it the summer of Rust. I make anything that I'm learning fun and into an adventure. So I called this summer the summer of Rust. So anytime I had some time, I would play with some Rust code and learn the basics. So once I got to the point where I understood the basics.
That's also kind of how you learned Linux and Unix too. You told me you like I said on this other journey before Rust, that I'm going to read a man page a day. I'm like, dude, that's
right.
Great advice.
That's right. Read it and I'll get back to Rust in 1 second. If you really want to learn Linux, period, man page a day. I learned that while working as a Unix engineer, Northrop Grumman. Quick story with that, real quick, right? When I was there, I was all about Solaris, hardcore Solaris. Anything you wanted done in Solaris, I could do it. Bind, trusted Solaris, DHCP, like just anything, right? My boss calls me in for a 6-month review, right? He said, "Hey, Charles, how you liking it? How you like Solaris?" I said, "Solaris is awesome. It's amazing." He said, "Good. You're doing AIX for the next 6 months." AIX? Yeah, AIX for the next 6 months.
I think it was great, dude. Like, if you use the GUI admin thing, there's this little guy that runs, and if your command fails, he falls down. If it's successful, he does like a little dance and jumps up and down.
Let's just say I had a lot of fall downs.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
I did too.
I had a lot of fall downs. Yes.
Yeah. When it comes to Solaris, everybody has a lot of fall downs.
I had a lot of fall downs with AIX and Solaris when I was first learning it. But the thing was, we had to write our code in Perl or Corn Shell. That was it, because we had AIX, Solaris, Ultrix.
Oh, yeah.
IRIX, excuse me. I'm talking Ultrix. IRIX. IRIX Unix, yes. So that code had to run on all 3 platforms, and our Linux environment was in the VMs. So those were running Corn Shell. And I still use Corn Shell to this day behind that. I never got over it.
And you read a man page a day to learn all that stuff.
Man page a day. I start off with the ls command, practice every command line option for the ls command. And then after I practiced that for the entire day, the next day I started with CP, the copy command. But before I went on to the copy command, I re-practiced everything that I learned with the ls command. That way I had it down pat. And the same thing with the CP. And I kept doing that for each command throughout the course of the year. And that's why no matter what came up with the operating system that I was working on, I would always go to the man page. I didn't go to Google because, again, if you go to Google...
Back in the day, there was no Google.
You know, that technique
but it wasn't like it was now.
Yeah.
It was, but it wasn't like it was now. And the best thing you could do for yourself when you're working in a Linux environment and something not working correctly, go to those man pages. They're written there for a reason. And that command line that you're working with that system only works with that particular system. Even if it's Ubuntu, the person that you might be reading the solution from on Stack Overflow might have a different version of Ubuntu where that command line option is not available in the version that you're running. So that's why I say always make sure you focus on the man pages. And that's my Linux public service announcement.
Yeah, but it sounds like you did a similar thing for Rust, like a daily practice to learn.
Yes. And what's happening now, I'm still on that journey. It ain't over. I made a dedication to a project. I'm trying to rewrite Responder and call it Rustponder.
Nice.
In Rust. And a new tool, I still have to add some more functionality to it. I got it to work where it just does enumeration of windows using looking at the code of seatbelt, but I'm calling it Rusty Belt.
So quick question. If you're an expert in Rust, or if you haven't used Rust in a while,
are you rusty?
Are you rusty?
Yes.
Oh.
You are.
Oh.
Yes, you are. You haven't used Rust in a while, you are rusty. And the Rust just dripping off of you.
And we're more excited about Rust because it's more memory safe. I don't want to say it's completely memory safe. Nothing really is. But it's more memory safe than C.
Charles, you need to build a course to teach Rust and call it Oil Can.
Oh, he's got to write that down.
He's writing it down.
He's taking a drink.
Oil Can. You know what? Now watch. After the show, I'm be thinking, Oil Can. I know that's gonna be on my mind. You just planted the ball.
What do you do for something rusty? You oil it.
Yeah.
Remember the Tin Man? You remember the classic Wizard of Oz?
The classic. The classic one, the real one.
Yeah, the real Wizard of Oz.
That changes from black and white to color. That real one.
Yes.
That's the real one.
Oil can! Oil can! Like, what's he saying?
That witch was scary.
I think he's saying oil can.
That witch was scary, though, in that movie. Yeah. But, no.
But all the reason we're excited about Rust is Mark Russinovich.
Yes.
Linux kernel.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, at least I'm excited about it, a UEFI implementation in Rust.
Yes.
Right? Like, those are all, like,
this is
really
huge.
disjointed things, but, like, the fact that the thing they have in common is they're all looking at Rust is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think Rust, even in the video game world, there's folks trying to write video games in Rust. That's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see where that journey takes everyone. That's what I'm saying. It's so many. This is why I get excited about tech, because there's so many different avenues that you can take. And it's all at our fingertips. We don't have to use library cards anymore, people.
Right.
I'm excited about it because I remember that pain.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of you that didn't get to experience that.
With the Linux kernel, though, my prediction was we're not going to see drivers or kernel stuff written in Rust for a really long time. Like, by the time that makes it from where it's at development now, I think it's 6. Is it 6.0 or 6.1?
I think it's still 6.0. I believe so.
By the time that starts trickling down into your distributions as anything close to a stable kernel, depending on your distro, man, like, you gotta, like, Slackware may never see it.
No.
You know,
Gentoo's
Gentoo's already running it, but like or you could compile it and run it in Gentoo, no problem. I mean, you can in Arch and Manjaro, they've got 6.0 kernels available, but like everything else in between it's like seemingly random and really up to someone else, which is kind of, we talk about like how much freedom and control you want. There's a scale when we talk about even just Linux.
Yeah.
Right?
And here's the thing too, right? You gotta look at it this way too. And I thought about this the other day. Nobody really wants to compile anything anymore in open source. They just want it to work.
Well, that's because the compiler could be bugged. Could be malwared with a compiler.
We have to make sure we talk about Ken Thompson's 1984 paper.
From the compiler, then the compiler could have malware in it.
Josh is seeing how many shows in a row we can reference Ken Thompson's paper from 1984.
We're up to 4?
Ken Thompson has... Shout out to Ken Thompson.
OG.
And Dennis Ritchie, rest in peace. But here's the thing, right?
Don't forget Brian Kernighan.
Of course, Brian all day. But here's the thing. Without those guys, right? We don't have operating systems. C was rewritten, Unix was rewritten in C in 1971.
Jesus, that's crazy. Was it that
long ago?
Yes. Look,
50 years ago.
Yes. 1971, C was rewritten. Unix was rewritten in C. Yeah. That long ago.
Jeff's fact checking you on that.
Fact checking.
He's on the Google.
Check that.
He's on the Google.
Check that. Check that.
While he's fact checking it, you know the other thing about 1971?
Yeah.
I was born then.
Was it?
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday in advance. Woo!
Happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday. Yes. Oh my goodness. Anything special planned?
Yes, but with two small children, it's not very much.
72.
72. I was off by a year. Okay. Close enough, though. I was in the same decade.
Hey, you're a great segue for me, so I owe you $20 or a drink, or whichever.
Oh, look at Look at that. But no, like, just I don't know. I just appreciate that kind of stuff, like the people before me that actually worked on this stuff, including my little baby back here, right?
What is that? What do you got back there?
Commodore 64.
I was also born in the 70s, so I can't see.
My Commodore 64. But the cool part is I've modded it. This is the floppy disk emulator that's running that has 32 gigs. I put a 32 gig SD card in it, so it uses the micro SD card. So I do have the original floppy disk with it, but I've copied all the games from the floppy, all the floppies that I have. They're all on this micro SD card.
No, and that emulates one giant floppy.
And there's a lot of room left on that SD card. I would wager.
A whole lot of room. It took a long, let's just say day and night, because you hear it.
How many floppies did it take to install Slackware?
A 5 1/4? Was that a 5 1/4 floppy on the Commodore 64?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have Choplifter and several others on there.
Oh god,
was Spy Hunter on the Commodore 64?
It was on the Apple II. I don't know.
I have it on my Apple II. Yeah.
I have an Apple IIe as well.
That's what I learned. That's what I learned on my Apple IIe when I was 7.
But it's just fun, just playing with the older technology as well too. That's what makes it interesting, because it's all tech. It's at the end of the day, I even have Smile Basic on my Nintendo 3DS.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
you get on some projects, Charles. That's some.
I have fun. You got. Hey, I look at it this way, right? And this is what you see almost every morning on Twitter. I'm excited about life. One, all my limbs, sight, right state of mind, and I get to work on tech for a living. Something I always wanted to do. It don't get no sweeter.
And I'm also along that vein too. Like, I'm enamored with the new tech as well. Like, I love the old tech, don't get me wrong, as we've proven in this segment, right? But, like, I read about and listen to podcasts on, like, the new tech, and I'm like, sometimes I'm just amazed when I get the new tech and, like, I push the power button that, like, stuff actually works. Like, knowing what's going on the covers, I'm like, I'm kind of amazed that I get from power button to login prompts because there's so much stuff happening. And all the new tech, I mean, you look at the new AMD, what is it, the 7000, Zen 4, and Intel's 13th gen. I'm like, it makes me like really excited. Like, I'll just go build a PC on PC Power Picker because I'm like, what does this look like? Like, this is so cool.
It's kind of like on the opposite end of things. I marvel that we put a man on the moon.
Yeah, I marvel
in the 60s.
I marvel at the old tech.
Technology.
Yeah, no, I agree. I marvel at the old tech too. And then I'm like, all this new tech. I mean, to your point, Jeff, like, we should be doing like even more amazing things. The fact that like what the PC I talked about you could build today is probably like 1,000 times the computer that put the man on the moon.
Oh,
pretty much,
Your phone is 1,000 times the computer that put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
Do you know what they had in the space shuttle? Just long after the space shuttle was running 8088s, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
8080, so IBM 8088s.
Yeah, the factoring of what the equivalent modern PC is today is way more than 1,000, would be my guess.
Right.
By the way, Charles, in the Discord, hint, somebody, if you're not on the Discord, you should all join. Gauss just popped up an Amiga 1200 board that's been freshly recapped, everything done.
What?
Brand new CPU card. Yeah, I didn't know you could do that to an Amiga. It's really pretty.
See, look at this. This what I'm talking about. Now you know.
Like
and we're doing all this because we can't get any new Raspberry Pis today. Is that why?
You know what?
Like, I can't get any Raspberry Pis. So like, I gotta see what other tech is laying around that I can mess with.
I want the Pis. You know what? I can't get the Pis. Oh, I can mod this. Let's go. Yeah.
You can get a Banana Pi. You can get a.
Oh, there's lots of alternatives. I think we're gonna talk about that in a couple of weeks. I got a guest coming on that wants to talk about some of that stuff. You can look at Pine 64. You can look at Odroid too for some ARM-based alternatives as well.
Are we going to ask?
We're going to ask the 5 questions. Charles,
let's do it.
You ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
I definitely am. Let's do it.
3 words to describe yourself.
Fun, positive, and loving.
If
He
you
forgot energetic.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Look at his face.
Twitter.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Hackers, hugs, and high fives.
What is your favorite hacker movie?
Sneakers.
Oh, I was going to say you were in New York in the 90s. It has to be Hackers. I'm going to, it has to be Hackers.
Hackers, I enjoy Hackers.
But
it's something about it's just something about Sneakers. I love it. I love Hackers too. That's kind of a tough question.
yeah, but
Well,
you
Jeff-
already
Jeff-
answered it.
Sneakers,
Jeff and I have this running joke, like Jeff scores a point if someone says Sneakers, and I score a point if they say Hackers. You already gave your answer,
Jeff
so you
got a
can't- you
point.
can't change.
I got a
Jeff
point.
gets point.
I get the
Jeff
point.
gets point.
Jeff
There's
got a
no
point.
backsies. No backsies.
You're on
Nope.
Team Jeff. You're on Team
You're on
Jeff.
Team
from
Jeff,
now on.
man. Charles, choose
I love it. Yeah,
choose 2 celebrities
Yeah, it's
to be
just
your
something about it.
parents.
Alive,
Sneakers.
dead, living, fictional, or otherwise.
Living, dead, fictional, or
Thank
otherwise.
you. I haven't. It's been a while.
There we go. The internet was acting up. What was that? Say that question again.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Oh, 2 celebrities.
Living, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
2 celebrities. You know what? Mario and the Princess.
There you go.
There we go. Yep.
That's a good answer.
You said fictional.
That's a
We
first.
Yeah.
Mario
There
and the
you go.
Princess.
Charles, thank you very much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly. As always, it's awesome chatting with you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. Had a great time. And, it doesn't have to end here. Please keep in touch. We can always nerd out all day, every day on Twitter and and even on the Discord.
I'm just gonna. We're just gonna have to do like regular Zoom calls where we just nerd out. Just quite frankly.
Hey, I'm for that.
Our propellers are gonna be spinning. And where do people find you on Twitter, Charles?
I'm the BSD Bandit on Twitter. And again, if you just want to chat, anything you want to talk about, words of encouragement, I don't even care. DM me. I will answer you back. If you follow me, I'll follow you back as well, too.
Fantastic, Charles. Thanks so much.
All right.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Oh, yip, yip.
Stay tuned, everyone. Security news coming up next.